Hi everybody. I want to get a couple things accomplished today. I want to kind of show you how to work a hive. It's February 18th, so it's still winter here in Colorado. But I want to show you how to work a hive, and I want to kind of explain to you what you're looking for in a hive inspection. And this is going to be kind of a video series that I start that will continue. So I'm going to give you the general idea of what you're looking for, especially if you're a new beekeeper. But then as I find different things, say chalk brood or God forbid foul brood or anything like that, you know, I'll do videos on those as well. I'll do brood pattern videos, I'll do queen videos, I'll do what you're basically looking for, what kind of problems you might have. And I don't know if you can tell, I have a mic under my shirt here, but it is extremely windy. And you really don't want to work hives if you can help it in windy conditions. The sun is out, which is a good thing for the bees. And this hive is actually flying. So what we have here is a hive that hasn't been flying nearly as much as the other hives. When I listen to them with the stethoscope or with my ear, it sounds like there's plenty of bees in there. But another thing that kind of scared me is that I've seen robbers kind of looking around the hive. Not really getting in and getting out, but looking around the hive. So that kind of tells me that they might be queenless. There's really three things you're looking for when you do a hive inspection. You're looking to see if they have a fertile queen, which means that it's a queen that is laying eggs that has cap brood, worker cap brood. She's not a drone layer. You're looking for the brood pattern. Is it solid or is it spotty or shotgun brood? And you're looking to see the hive strength. Are they strong? Are they weak? Etc. And then from there you kind of branch out. If you have a spotty brood pattern, then you need to branch out and say, why is it spotty? Is it a bad queen? Is it a disease? Is it a diploid drone situation? What are those situations? We're not going to delve into that today. We will later on in the summer, all through the summer. I'm going to be releasing videos that kind of complement this one. And so you can kind of follow a flow chart. If you have a laying queen with cap brood, but you have a spotty brood pattern, let's go down and look at what causes spotty brood patterns. For example, if you have European foul brood, you're going to find dead larvae in the hive. If you have American foul brood, it's going to be dead pupa. It's not going to be dead larvae very often. So I'll branch out and do those kinds of things. Suffice it to say that you want decent weather conditions to work bees. Now if they're flying, and they are, then that's a good sign. You don't want to work bees when they're not flying. When it's windy, they don't like it either when you go in the hive. So I'm going to position the camera over to the side so that you can't see me, but you can see what I'm doing in the hive, and just talk about a quick hive inspection. The wind has actually increased since I made my little intro video, and of course I want everybody to know that if at all possible, you should not work bees in this kind of weather. But I basically have to. So you can see that there are bees in there. Give them a little smoke, let them know you're here. Let them disperse a little bit. And when I say a little smoke, that's what I mean, just a little. So when you work a hive, now my inner cover is turned upside down because it's winter here, and I want the airflow to go a certain path through the hive, which is basically along the back wall, and that's why that's like that. Okay, when you open up a hive around the bee escape hole, a lot of times this is what you'll see. You'll see bees kind of in a circle around there. But the longer you keep them open, the more you'll be able to see the cluster. Okay, so you want to pull an outside frame. Now you can go one way or the other. test the bees by doing that. If the bees kind of flinch at you, then you'll know they're not too happy with you. But they didn't do nothing. They're actually very calm despite the windy conditions. Now this frame is kind of pulled out weird. This is an 8-frame hive, that's why I don't like them. They do weird things with the frame. They don't do weird things with the frames, it's just that the hive itself is built wrong. So I'm going to pull this inside frame out. Now they didn't like that, so they're going to kind of jostle this around. You want to kind of leverage your hive tool in there to pull this out, and this hive also has bad bee space down below. So they're actually attached down below, which I don't like. This is a honey frame. So if you're looking for the queen, which you may or may not have to do, you want to know if there's a fertile queen. You don't necessarily have to see her, but you can see that's a solid honey frame. Okay, so now you can kind of go in, and I'm looking, there's a lot of honey up here, and you saw me move the hive. That's because it's real top heavy, but they actually have a lot of honey in here. But what typically will happen is that you'll see honey at the top in a healthy hive, and not so, and then there'll be brood down below. But they could all be all the way down below. So I'm looking for eggs now. I don't see any. You see, there's a healthy amount of bees though. Okay, when working a hive too, when you put a frame back in, I'm going to go towards the camera. Put a frame back in order to keep from smashing bees, run it alongside the end bars so that one side is always there and you don't smash bees in between. There's a pretty good gust of wind. And they won't like that either. Okay, here we have a decent frame. I'm not looking for the queen so much as looking for eggs or any sign of brood, which I do not see. Now, the next frame is pretty much solid honey. So I'm pretty positive the queen's not going to be over there. And what I've learned here is that the queen isn't in this upper hive body. It's in the lower hive body. So I need to know if there is a queen, because if the queen's not up here, they're down below. You see how I'm putting my hive tool in here and slowly moving it back together? I'm doing that for a reason. You see that bee jump at my hive tool? So that's a guard. And all that means is they're getting a little jumping. It's mainly because of the wind. So give them a little bit of smoke. Now most hives are going to be in the upper hive body in February. The fact that these guys aren't means that they have plenty of honey and plenty of food. But I'm going to put this top together and we're going to drop down to the bottom. And by the way, when you put a frame back in, you want to make sure it's a frame that does not have the queen on it. You don't want the last frame you put in to be a frame with the queen on it. And then remember to move your bee space back. Langstroth's hives are built so that in between the frames, this space right here is bee space. You want these frames as close to each other as you can possibly get them. Now normally, somebody brought this up to me one time, normally I would set this hive body on a lid that's setting on the ground that's overturned, but my lid on this hive, as you saw earlier, is a gabled lid. It has a pitched roof, so I can't do that. So instead, I'm just going to have to set it on the side here. I don't like to do that, but that's just what has to happen. Now, when I went down below, you could see that the cluster is mainly closer to the camera. There's not very many bees over here, in fact. They're all kind of on this side. And you can see that the population of the hive, this is February again, is pretty good. Now, looking down between where the camera might not be able to see, is that on this side there's almost no bees. I don't think there might be a couple bees over here on this frame, but there's hardly any. So I want to pull that frame first. And set it aside. That gives me room. Then you want to jump straight in to the brood nest. That's a honey frame. This is a honey frame. And this is what looks like a brood frame. So I'm going to look down in here for any sign of brood. Now you can see that the cluster is at the top of the frame. I'm going to set this one aside because I didn't give myself too much room there. Cluster's at the top of the frame. This is where the main body of the bees are. I didn't see any sign of eggs or a queen. This is a bad sign. And there's nothing here either. No eggs, no brood, no nothing. So this is a situation in which this hive is queenless, more than likely. All my other hives that I've looked in do have brood right now. By the way, a queenless hive is going to be more aggressive than a queen right hive. So if you have a hive that's aggressive and they have a queen, it doesn't, the common beekeeping practices says to replace the queen, but the problem is that the queen isn't usually the problem, and replacing the queen doesn't necessarily fix the problem. So you have to find out why they're being aggressive. If the hive wasn't aggressive before, for example, and now it is, there is a reason that the hive is aggressive. I'm putting this, and actually it's in the wrong order, but that's okay because there's nothing on these frames. In fact, just to make sure, I'm going to put the top hive body on, and then I'm going to check the frames closest to the camera real quick again, just to make sure. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when I went here, you can see this is where the cluster is formed, and they're at the top of these frames, which means they're also at the bottom of the upper hive body's frames. That's where the main cluster is. Now, I didn't go all the way over here. I think I went about to the third frame closest to you, so I'm going to check these two frames just to make sure on the outside chance that there is a queen, because I saw a pollen carrier in here. Pollen carriers usually aren't around if there is no queen. Now, earlier in the video I told you that you could check a hive's, you see they're no longer in a circle around here. So you can see that the cluster is on this right side. The bees are jumping at me a little bit at times. I'll give them a little smoke, they'll run down, then they behave for a little while. But they're jumping at me because one, it may be because they're queenless, and two, it also could be because of the wind. So I'm not going to make any snap judgments. I shouldn't be in the hive anyway. It's just necessary for me to know. And the weather isn't getting any better over the next few days. I would like to know now what the state of this hive is. So I also wanted to get another video out for you guys. So you can see they have plenty of food, and they have plenty of force. So if queens aren't available, and of course in nature there are no drones right now in winter, so I can't just give them another queen. I can't even give them an egg, because even if they were to raise a queen, she wouldn't be able to mate. So earlier when I was in here, I thought this was a honey frame, and it is from the top. That's mostly what I see, but let's check it out just to make sure. Actually, it's pretty light, so That's mostly drone comb there. So I found some eggs. The bees are covering up the cells, which is pretty common for them. I actually see some eggs down in there, but they're not placed correctly in the cell, which means that it could be a drone layer. So in this case, you want to try to find the queen. She's going to be on this side of this frame. There's no eggs on the other side. I don't see any sign of a queen. I do actually see one larva in there. It's pretty good size, but it's by itself. That's also a bad sign. You should see larvae together. I'm going to give them a little smoke and move them around on the frame. You can also blow on them. That's not something they really like, but what I need to do is see the cells underneath the bees. So there is an outside chance that they do have a queen, but it's pretty small. It's a pretty small chance, and the reason I say that is because I only saw a couple eggs in there, and I didn't see a queen. Sometimes bees work themselves kind of into a corner. So just to be thorough, I'm going to check this frame. As suspected, this frame doesn't have anything on it either, just a cluster of bees. Again, if you tighten it up a little bit as you put it in, you don't have to worry so much about smashing bees later. You've already taken 50% of the equation out there by doing that. By running the frame along the end bars along the other end bar, what you're doing is and you do it slowly too. You notice how slow I'm working? One is because it's the nature of the beast here. And two, I want bees to have a chance to get out of the way. Now, we saw eggs, just a couple. I'm going to tighten this up again real quick. We saw just a couple of eggs on this frame. I'm going to mark it. Now, about 14, 15 days from now, if I come in and I see capped brood there, I knew I'm doing all right. But if those eggs turn into drones, I will also see that in a few days. So I'm going to get out here. You can see they're kind of jumping at me more now. So I've been in the hive a lot longer than it's going to show on the film. I've been in here for probably about 20, 25 minutes. That's exceeded their it's exceeded their tolerance in this wind. So let's close them up. Sorry, I had to move inside. It got so windy out there, and I knew it was going to get windy, but it was supposed to be later when it got windy. So anyway, I just want to go over a couple things real quick about the video. So our hive inspection revealed that the hive is queenless. What are my options? Right now, very few. I can unite another hive with him. I would choose a weak hive that's queen right, unite him with him. That would be the single best option this time of year, because it's winter. I can't order queens. There are no drones in there, if you noticed, there are no drones in the hive. There aren't any drones in the area, so they can't even make their own queen. So my only other option would be to wait a month, month and a half, and they'll be there. They'll be okay, but wait a month and a half and have them rear their own queen. But that would involve more bees dying, the cluster getting smaller, and then 2 months basically from the time that they started that queen cell to the time that they had an egg hatching. Or not an egg hatching, but until the time they had an adult bee hatching out of some capped brood. So it would take them all summer to build up. So that's not really an option for me. We found a queenless hive. We did it pretty methodically. So I wanted to obtain 2 objectives for this video, and that was to show you kind of how I work the hive. Only use enough smoke to get the bees to kind of go down a little bit. You don't need to use any more than that. That hive should have been aggressive and was not. Now that you saw a few bees coming at me here and there, they were just warning me. I know a lot of you wear protective equipment so the bees can't sting you anyway, but that doesn't mean that the bees don't sting and they don't die and you don't tick them off and the next time that you're in there they're aggressive because you're in there, or that behavior when you want to show somebody else your bees, that it doesn't scare them away from bees. So you want to maintain gentle bees, and the single largest, biggest cause of an aggressive hive is an aggressive beekeeper. So be gentle with the bees. And then I want you to understand that what are you really looking for when you're inspecting a hive? The first number one thing is, are they queen right? Now you don't have to find the queen. If I would have found eggs and capped brood, worker brood, difference between drone brood and worker brood, if I'd have found that, I would have closed them up, the hive inspection would have been over. I'd have known they were queen right and healthy. But when I saw that capped brood, I would have also checked, which is the second step, check the brood pattern. Was the brood pattern spotty or was it solid? That would have been my next step. A solid brood pattern means a healthy hive. A shotgun or a spotty brood pattern means that it's not. There's reasons for that. Beekeepers tend to think that a spotty brood pattern means that the queen kind of haphazardly lays or chaotically lays in the frames. That's usually not the case. What the case usually is that she's laid eggs everywhere, but for whatever reason, the larva died or the pupa died of the bees pulled that out, and then you're looking at it and you're seeing all these empty cells amongst this brood pattern. That's usually because that brood died or was culled for whatever reason. It could be a hygienic hive as well. So you have to keep that in mind. If you have hygienic bees, they could also be pulling healthy bees out that have varroa in those cells, and that would create a spotty brood pattern. So you need to find out why it's spotty, and I'll delve into that deeper later. The third thing is something that you've discovered while you were working the hives and looking for the queen in the brood pattern, and that is the hive strong or is it weak? A weak hive doesn't necessarily mean a dead hive, but you want to know. You want to know what the strength is. So those are the three things you're looking for. I'm going to cover those in depth in later videos, each for one of those branches. But I want to leave you with this. I suspected that hive had problems because of the activity in front of the hive. There was very, very little activity in front of the hive. I have, a large knowledge base and a lot of experience working bees, but if you didn't, and that was your only hive, the fact that it's 60 or 65 degrees out and sunny and the bees aren't flying should tell you that there's something wrong. So when you're looking outside the hive, you also want to look, is there pollen coming in? If there's a lot of pollen coming in, then they've typically got brood and they're healthy, but there should be activity. This time of the year in February, in the US anyway, in winter, wherever you're at, there should still be activity with a beehive. Once it gets above 44 degrees in my area, bees start flying. They go get water because they need water. They get a little exercise, reorient on their hives. They get out there when it's nice and warm. And when you see a hive that isn't, that's cause for concern. So always check your hives in general from the outside, from an external view, before you start delving into the hives and just looking for these things. Because yeah, you want to stay on top of your hives, but you don't want to go in and look for the queen every week. Finding eggs means that there was a queen alive 3 days before that, within 3 days. Hope you enjoyed the video, and sorry again about the wind, but if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up and please subscribe for more. We'll see you later.